This is Sydney Engelstein.
And this is Jeff Engelstein. We're the designers of Space Cadets Dice Duel and are here to teach you how to play.
Space Cadets Dice Duel pits two starships against each other in quick-paced combat. The players are divided into two teams, each team playing the crew of their ship. The team will lose or win together. The game ends when one side destroys their opponent by causing 4 points of damage through torpedoes or mines, and typically takes between 15 and 30 minutes. Each ship has 6 stations. Engineering generates power for the other stations. Helm maneuvers the ship on the map. Weapons loads the torpedo tubes to attack the enemy. Sensors locks onto the enemy so torpedoes can hit, and uses jammers to stop the enemy from locking on. Shields helps protect the ship from enemy torpedoes. Finally, tractor beams can grab the powerful crystals, move the enemy ship on the map, and launch mines. There are no turns in Space Cadets Dice Duel. The game continues with players acting as quickly as possible until one side wins. Each player will be in charge of one or more of these stations, or have the overall role of captain to coordinate everything. To set up the game, divide the players into 2 equal teams. Each team should sit on the same side of the table. Next, divide the stations between the players. You can do this any way you'd like, but the rules give suggestions for new players. If you have 4 players per team, one player is designated as the captain. The captain is not in charge of a particular station. She is in charge of setting goals and strategy and watching what the other ship is doing. Each player takes the displays and dice for their stations. The player with engineering should set up in the center, within easy reach of all players. Place your ship miniature on the starting space on the map, pointing in the direction of the arrow, and place 2 mine tokens on the tractor beam display. Now put 1 crystal on each space on the board, and place the asteroid and nebula tokens however you'd like. You are ready to play! Start the game with someone saying, "Begin!" and engineering will start to roll the white energy dice.
Each station gets a set of dice, color-coded for that station. The white dice are called energy dice and are used at the engineering station. The other dice are called station dice. When energy and station dice are rolled, you may roll and re-roll them as many times as you like until you are satisfied with the result. If you roll multiple dice, you can keep the results on some and re-roll the others. Whenever energy dice are available on the engineering display, engineering may roll and move any die to the corresponding stations matching that number. For example, if you roll a 4, it can be moved to the shield station or re-rolled. When engineering passes dice to a station, they are placed on the striped energy section of the station display. While engineering can always roll energy dice, the station dice may not be rolled until that station receives energy dice. When a station receives energy dice, you may immediately begin rolling 1 die for each energy die in the energy section of the display. For example, here there are 2 energy dice on the shield display, so the player in charge of shields can start rolling 2 shield dice. You can roll and re-roll station dice as many times as you want, as with energy dice. When you are satisfied with 1 or more dice, place them onto the correct area of the displays, more on that later, and return the same number of energy dice back to engineering by placing them anywhere on the engineering station display. Engineering can immediately start to roll the returned energy dice to give them back out to station. This is really important to understand, so let's walk through an example. Engineering has 3 available energy dice. 1 Helm die has previously been placed on the Helm display. The captain has instructed the team to try to get a weapon lock and move the ship into firing position. Engineering rolls the 3 energy dice and gets a 1, 2, and 4. She passes the 2 to sensors and re-rolls the other 2 dice until she gets a 2 and a 5, passing the 2 to sensors and the 5 to Helm. As soon as the energy dice are received by the stations, they can begin to roll their station dice. Sensors rolls 1 die as soon as they get the first energy die, and can roll a 2nd die when they get the second. Helm has 1 energy die, and so only rolls 1 of the Helm dice. After rolling and re-rolling, Sensors eventually gets a single lock and double lock result and places them on the sensor display. As soon as those dice are placed, the energy dice are returned to engineering, placing them on the engineering display. In the meantime, Helm has rolled a forward result and placed it on the B slot of the Helm display, returning the energy die back to engineering. As soon as energy dice are passed back to engineering, she can begin to roll them again. She does not need to wait until all of them are returned.
The Helm station is used to move the ship across the map. The symbols on the Helm dice show the direction the ship is moved. Each of the symbols move the ship at least one space forward. This symbol moves the ship one space forward. This moves it 2 spaces forward. This symbol moves it forward 1 square, then turns the ship to the left. This moves it forward 1 square, then turns it to the right. And this moves 1 square forward and turns completely around. You roll the Helm dice and then place them into one of these 3 slots on the Helm display to program the movement of the ship. You can place the dice in any order, but the A die will be resolved first, then B, and finally C. The ship miniature is not actually moved on the board until all 3 dice are placed. Once they are placed, the Helm officer moves the ship on the map, and then all 3 Helm dice are removed from the display. What is on your opponent's display is public knowledge, so you can look at their dice to try and get an idea of where they are moving to. Here's an example. Let's say the Helm dice are set up like this. The ship will be moved like this. Then remember to take the dice off the display after the move is complete. You'll need to get more energy to Helm before you can move again.
The main way of causing damage to your opponent is hitting them with your torpedoes. There are 3 stations involved in launching and resolving torpedoes: weapons, sensors, and shields. This is the weapon display. It shows 4 torpedo tubes, 2 in front of the ship and 2 in the rear. Loading a torpedo requires 3 dice, one showing the nose symbol, one for the body, and one for the tail. Since you have 6 weapon dice, you can either load 2 front torpedoes, 2 rear, or 1 of each. Front torpedoes can hit any square inside the highlighted area. These squares include the diagonals heading out the front of your ship and all squares in between. Rear torpedoes can hit these squares, just like the front, but in between the rear diagonals of the ship. So in this situation, front torpedoes from the white ship can hit the black ship, but the black ship cannot shoot the white ship with either front or rear torpedoes. When the captain wants to launch torpedoes, she shouts loud enough that the other team can hear, "Fire 1" or "Fire 2," depending on whether you want to launch 1 or 2 torpedoes. You can launch 1 even if you have 2 loaded. If playing without a captain, the weapon officer is in charge of shouting "Fire." As soon as fire is yelled, all action stops, all dice are put down, and the situation on each display is frozen while the launch is resolved. There are 3 steps in resolving a torpedo launch. First, does the torpedo hit? Second, if it hits, does it cause damage? And third, there is a cleanup step. After all 3 steps, the action starts back up again and players can begin to roll normally. There are a few things required for the torpedo to hit the enemy ship. First, the enemy must be in your front or rear arc, and you must have a torpedo loaded on that side. You also need to have enough weapon lock points on the sensor display. Count the number of squares from your ship to the enemy. This is the number of weapon lock icons you need to have. This side of the sensor dice shows 1 weapon lock icon. This side shows 2. So if you have these 2 dice on your sensor display, you have 3 weapon lock points. However, the enemy may have jammer icons on their sensor display. This is a single jammer icon, and this counts as 2 jammers. Enemy jammers add to the number of weapon locks you need to succeed. So if you are 3 squares away, and the enemy has 2 jammers, you need at least 3 plus 2 or 5 weapon lock icons. If you have enough weapon lock, your torpedo hits. If not, they miss. Regardless of whether you hit or miss, you remove the weapon dice from the torpedoes that were launched, and the sensor dice with lock. All of them, regardless of how many icons you actually needed to hit. The enemy removes all of their jammer dice. If the torpedoes hit, the next thing is to see if they cause any damage using the shield display. First, check to see which side of the enemy ship is hit. There are 4 sides shown on the shield display: Shield 1, Shield 2, Shield 3, and Shield 4. If the shot is directly on a diagonal, the defending ship chooses which shield is hit. When you roll shield dice, you may put them on the display on the side matching that icon or re-roll as normal. Since there are 3 shield dice, you can have up to 3 dice on one side of the ship, or you can spread them out. So in our example, the torpedo will hit Shield 2. If there are no shield dice on that side of the ship, each torpedo does 1 point of damage. For each damage, the enemy places 1 energy die on the damage track, reducing the available energy dice. If 4 damage are taken, the ship explodes and the game ends. If there are 3 shield dice on that side, the torpedo automatically causes no damage. If there are 1 or 2 dice, you roll 1 weapon die for each torpedo, trying to get the blast symbols. The 1 or 2 blast symbols will cause damage against a 1 die shield, but only the 2 blast symbol will damage a 2 die shield. Regardless of whether damage was caused or not, all shield dice on the affected side of the ship are removed from the display. Last step in the launch sequence is cleanup. Double check to make sure that any weapon, sensor, or shield dice that needed to be removed are removed. Also, this is when you roll to replace crystals back on the map, but more on that later. After cleanup is complete, the action starts back up again, with players again rolling as quickly as they can.
The last system is tractor beams. There are 3 things you can do with tractor beams. Grab the purple crystals, which can be spent for special abilities, move the enemy ship, and drop mines. To grab a crystal, you need the tractor symbols. To successfully grab a crystal, count the number of squares to the crystal. Again, do not count diagonally. Double that number, and that is the number of icons you need. For example, here you are, 2 squares from the crystal, so you need 4 tractor icons. If you are in the same square as the crystal, you still need 1 tractor icon. You have 5 on the display, so you can take the crystal and put it in the crystal area on your side of the board. Then remove all the dice on the tractor beam display, including mine dice. If you want to move the enemy ship, you need the same number of tractor icons as if you were getting a crystal. However, since you are affecting the enemy ship, you need to stop the action in this case, just like with a torpedo launch. In this case, shout "Tractor!" and all players must put their dice down. If you have enough tractor icons, you can move the enemy ship to any adjacent square, including diagonally. The facing remains the same. For example, here you choose to move the enemy ship into this square. Then you discard all tractor dice as before. This is a good time to talk about nebula and asteroid squares. If a ship moves into an asteroid square, whether it moves using its own Helm dice or is moved by enemy tractor beam, the ship removes 2 shield dice of the shield officer's choice. If there are fewer than 2, just remove what is there. If you move through a nebula square, remove 2 sensor dice from the display. You can also use tractor beams to drop one of your 2 mine tokens. If you roll the mine A or the mine B symbol, place it on the display. Then, as long as that die is there, at any future time, you can place that mine token in the same square as your ship. Once a mine token is placed, if any ship, not just an enemy ship, moves into that square or is moved into it by tractor beams, the mine explodes. The moving ship takes 1 point of damage that cannot be stopped by shields, and the mine token is removed from the game. You only have 2 mine tokens, so use them wisely.
To conclude the tutorial, let's talk about crystals. You get crystals using the tractor beams and can spend them to do something special. There are 3 special abilities. Station Override costs 1 crystal. Place the crystal in the used crystal area on the board, and then you can take any station die, turn it to the face that you want, and place it directly onto the display. You bypass energy dice and having to roll the side you want. Warp Jump also costs 1 crystal. Place the crystal in the used crystal area and shout, "Warp Jump!" This freezes the action like a torpedo launch. To perform the warp jump, roll 2 energy dice and choose one of those 2 spaces to move your ship to, keeping the same facing. After placing the ship on the new space, the action starts again. The last ability is Energy Surge. This costs 2 crystals and lets you retrieve an energy die from the damage track and back into your pool. Place 1 crystal in the used crystal area and 1 on the damage track where you have a die. Take the energy die back into your energy pool. Note that you still have the same amount of damage. This just lets you retrieve energy back into your dice pool. Crystals in the used crystal box are placed back onto the board after a weapon launch. Roll 1 energy die for each crystal and place it in the matching space on the board. There may be more than 1 crystal in a square. If you tractor beam a space with more than 1 crystal, you only get 1. You must do a separate tractor beam attempt for each crystal. This concludes your training. You may run into situations that were not covered in this tutorial. In that case, please consult the rules for full details. Good luck, cadets!